I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease. It rocked me. It rocked my world. And so I'm driving down the highway and I'm screaming at God and going, this ain't right. This ain't fair. I'm trying to do your will. I knew in that second that going forward, this was going to be a long journey. And so she opens up the envelope and she pulls out these pictures, and they're pictures of my room. And she goes, I'm not going to sign these papers until he learns how to clean his room. I was so humiliated. I felt like I lost everything. But then little by little, God begins to rebuild his way.
Hey guys, listen, you're going to really enjoy this episode with Pastor Mando Luna. He talks about some of the toughest seasons that he's gone through as a husband, as a pastor in ministry and in life. You got to stick around to the end because he really talks about how God got him through and the biggest lessons that he learned in those seasons. I think you're really going to like this episode. You were my first youth pastor.
Yes.
So I remember when Pastor Eddie was doing it.
Yeah.
And he had this, he wouldn't let me go to the youth.
What do you mean? Oh, because
I was too young.
Oh, you were too young. Okay.
I was too young, so I would sneak in every now and then.
Yeah.
And then he left, and then you took over, and that's when I
Snuck
came into it. No, I was finally old enough. No, you would have let me sneak in.
Yeah, I would
anyway.
let you sneak in anyway, man. Just, come on, more people.
We need a people.
Listen, at that age, man, you want as many people as you don't care how old they are, man. Just Adam did the same things. Like let all these people at the Elevate conference, man. Some were like 40 years old, man. He didn't care, man. Just come, man. So it is an honor, man, to see you where you are and people flourishing. There's a sense of pride, man, that comes with that. Like, this is what it's about, you know. Same thing with the people you're working with. One day you'll be at my age and you'll be looking down going, man, it's an honor.
I feel like there are people now, like I'm still, I'm 34, right?
Yeah.
But there are people now that I was an older teenager when they were kids, like little kids. And now they're leading worship, leading ministries, pastoring in some capacity. I'm like, dude, this is weird.
That's awesome.
Because I feel the same. You know what I mean? I don't feel older.
Father Time, bro. Father Time catches all of us, man. Undefeated, bro. Undefeated, man. So it's an honor. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, I'm glad you're on. Yeah. So we've known each other for a really long time.
Are we live?
We're live. We're in.
Okay.
We've been in.
Maybe like a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, we've been in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
great stuff.
All right, cool, man. Cool.
See,
yeah.
That's how we do it, man.
All right,
right into the podcast.
All right, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, I remember we've known each other for a long time. I remember my first prophetic word was in your youth ministry.
Oh, man.
Why did you let me do that? What were you thinking?
Wait. Are you talking about the prophetic word I gave you?
No. I don't remember the prophetic word you gave me.
You said something like I gave you a word of what did you say? Something if God can use anything.
No. I went up to you.
Okay.
And I said, Pastor Mando, I don't know what it is. I feel like I need to say something. I feel like I have a word from God for the youth.
Yeah.
And you're like, go do it. And so I get up there and I forget what the word was. I mean, it must have been important, right?
Yeah.
And then you go up on stage. You were probably trying to be really nice.
What did I say, man?
And you said something like, see, if God, the Bible says that God even uses the donkeys to speak. God could use anybody. And I remember going back to my seat thinking, man, this is...
Man, I must have really loved you back there to say that, man. It's Is
that how you...
Yeah, that's how I encourage people, man. I just try to inspire people by telling them the truth. I'm kidding. I don't even remember that. I really don't, Mike. But I remember the youth, and I remember the the fresh fire vibe, man. Mm-hmm. It was special.
Yeah,
it was special. I had a picture I posted probably about a year ago, and it was a picture of all of Fresh Fire. I don't know if you've seen it. It had you guys are on there. Hector was there, Vanessa, Angel and Dez. I mean, just Danielle, my daughter. Everybody was in there. And I look at today, everybody that was in that photo and what they're doing today for the kingdom.
Right.
It's just, man, overwhelming. Like, what a blessing. Well, so it was special, man.
Well, there's no question that you've made impact in tons of lives. Right? I think what's interesting is that as we've been able to see your faithfulness and your commitment, which I honor that. I think there's something special about seeing people run the race for a long time.
Yeah.
To where you look up to them as leaders and mentors and youth pastors and pastors, and then you get to the place where not to say you're on the same level in any sense of spirituality or anything like that, but now we're both pastoring churches and we're both in ministry together. And to look at people like you and Pastor Eddie, Pastor Omar, my dad, these people who've just been running the race and being faithful, there's so much to be taken away from those relationships.
Yeah.
to be able to sit down with you and just have a conversation about ministry and life. I think that's super special. My life was truly impacted by the youth ministry.
Yeah.
There's all these people. You have my kids' church teacher, Lisa.
Yeah.
Changed my life, a lot of our lives. Then we get out of there, out of kids' church into youth ministry, you, and then Pastor Hector changed my life, right? And so I think to be here now talking with you about all that God has done in your life and hear your testimony, I think that's going to be really encouraging for me and for anybody else who's listening.
Yeah.
When did you get saved? What did that look like for you?
So, how much time do we have on this? Because there's a lot to share on that one.
Well, we're fine.
We got fine. Okay, all right. So, growing up Catholic, that was kind of my upbringing. I've always had an awareness of God. I mean, I don't know if that's the right term to use, but my mom used to, drag me to church on Sundays, and I remember as a kid going into mass. If you're Catholic, you know the terminologies and sign of the cross, and you take communion every week, bow, stand, and there's a thing called confession, and so every Saturday you go to confession. And you confess all your sins to the priest. You go walk into the curtain. The curtain's dividing. There's like a little box. You walk in, you sit down, and you confess your sins to the priest. The priest's like, all right, go out and give me, Our Fathers and Hail Marys or whatever. And I would do that every Saturday, and then Sunday go to church, and then Sunday night I'm back sinning again, right? So I had an awareness of God. But I had no fear of God. There's just no fear. So I say that because fast forward ahead, I'm 12, 13 years old, and my life just took a crazy turn. You started getting into trouble, and growing up in a single parent home, my mom had to play two roles, dad and mom, and the love was there, but the discipline wasn't. So I got away with everything, man. I got away with murder, constantly in trouble, constantly just doing things I shouldn't be doing. Well, at the age of 15, ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant, and some of that story, and had a kid at 16. And, when you have a kid, and I'm kind of reflecting back then, I remember, I'm a kid having a kid.
Right.
The weight that comes with that, the pressure that comes with being a father, having to drop out of school, get a job, not even old enough to get a job, but, I got to provide for my family now. I remember the burden of that. And I say all that to answer your question, because I remember we're living with my mom. It was me, Lisa, and Shatera. She was like 6 months old. Lisa was out washing clothes at the laundromat down the street. I was looking out the window, and I was holding Shatera in my arms, and she's screaming, she's crying, and I can't get her to stop crying. My mom's gone, and I'm home alone, and I'm looking out the window, and I started having this anxiety attack while I'm standing there looking, and I remember the feeling of like panic. And it was just like my mind was going, and my heart was racing. I was breaking out in a sweat. I didn't know what it was.
Was that familiar, or was
it just happened right. It was like right there in that moment.
So that was the first time you had it?
Yes.
Wow.
So I'm like freaking out, looking around, like thinking I'm going to lose my mind. I thought I was losing my mind. And I remember looking out the window and going, thinking to myself, and I'm 16 years old, I'm 50 years old now, going way back then, thinking, can somebody help me? And I'm looking out the window, can somebody help me? And I remember saying it out loud, can somebody help me? Now, being aware of God, I didn't even think about calling on God. I just remember thinking that. Back then, there wasn't a lot of talk about mental health and anxiety and medication, all that stuff. It was just like, people, you're crazy. It was kind of thing, So it was a week later that me and Lisa with Shatera in the car, we're driving down Paramount Boulevard, crossing over Somerset, and we looked to the right, we seen Praise Chapel Paramount. And I remember because my father-in-law, her dad at the time, was an evangelist for Praise Chapel and was telling us to go visit that church. So that night we pulled over, were driving, pulled over, walked in, it was a Wednesday night, walked into the church, don't remember the message, but Pastor Omar was preaching, responded to the altar call. We both walked forward, gave our life to Christ, and the rest was history, man. So however many years that was since we were 16, I'm 50 now. I'll let you do the math. Was it like 33, 34 years?
I'm not going to do the math.
Yeah. So
it's a long time.
It's a long time. But I think I needed to say that because for those that Bible says in Matthew 7:21, not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, is going to get into the kingdom of heaven. Only those that keep the will of my Father in heaven. Many will come on that day and say, Lord, didn't we prophesy? We performed these miracles. And Jesus' response is going to be, depart from me, worker of iniquity. I never knew you. So although I had an awareness of God, I didn't know him personally. And so that moment when I responded to the altar, I remember the encounter that happened there, and it forever changed my life. And so, but all of that led to that panic attack and that high levels of anxiety. It led me to search.
Right.
And that's where I came to know Christ.
So you're growing up, young kid, then you make a decision that pretty much forces you to grow up quickly.
Quick.
Right?
Yep.
You have Shatera.
Yes.
And then you get saved, go to church. And what did life look like after that? What were some of the big decisions? You're like, now that I'm going from this old life, 16 years old, right?
Yep.
Going from this old life, I know I have to make different decisions. Now, what was that next big decision that you're like, I gotta do what's right?
So 16 years old, got saved. We were going to church for like probably 3 or 4 months. And I knew we got to get married. Like, we're living together. And it was crazy because like I said, I had an awareness of God, didn't have a fear of God. When I got saved, all of a sudden things that I never noticed became more alive. It's like my eyes were open to see things I never saw before. Even things I heard, music I used to listen to, now I'm listening to the same music. I can't. The language, it just, I couldn't do it. I remember throwing away all my old tapes and cassettes. Tapes, that'll take you back, man. Tapes and cassettes. And
did anybody tell you to do that? Or
No. I remember one night I came home, I had tons of cassettes. I threw them in a trash bag, tied up. And Lisa was like, what are you doing? I go, I'm throwing all this stuff away. She goes, why? I go, I can't listen to it. I put on the music and I remember putting the tape on, played it, and it had a lot of vulgar language.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you hear this? She goes, it's always been there. I go, are you serious? Like, I didn't know. I was blind. And now my eyes are open. Holy Spirit just awakened me. It was like an awakening. So went, threw everything away. But another thing was I knew I needed to get married. The problem was I wasn't old enough. My mom wasn't saved. So she was totally against it. She was like, you're not going to get married, because I needed her signature to get married, right? You heard this story, but I knew it needed to be done. And I remember talking to Pastor Omar, and he's like, well, let's talk to your mom. Let's see what we can do. And I go, I know, because we want to live right. And we didn't want to fornicate. We knew just the Holy Spirit working on us was like, this is wrong. We need to get married. And so we went to my mom, talked to her about it. She's like, I'm not having it. I'm not signing any papers. So I had Pastor Omar talk to my mom, and he's like, okay, we'll bring her to the church. We'll have a meeting. And
she just accepted that?
Yeah, she accepted. She goes, because he was like, he called. I gave him the number. He called the house. We didn't have cell phones back then, so you had to literally call the house. Yeah. And somehow he convinced my mom. Pastor Omar, he's a great salesman, man. He'd get you there. And so he got my mom to get down there. And so me and Lisa were there. Pastor Omar was there. We're waiting for mom to pull up. And I'm like excited because I think, okay, Pastor Omar, if anybody can convince my mom, it's going to be Pastor Omar. And so my mom walks in, and she's got this envelope. And she's walking in, you can see this look on her face, like she just doesn't look happy. And I'm thinking, what's in that envelope? And so we sit down, and Pastor Omar's like, okay, Gloria, thanks for showing up. And we just want to talk to you a little bit about, why they want to get married. And so my mom's listening, she's being respectful. And he's like, the Bible says, that it talks about marriage and fornication, and this is against God's will. And so he's going with scriptures, and she's like, And then he goes, yeah, so is there anything you'd like to say? And so she opens up the envelope, and she pulls out these pictures, and they're pictures of my room. And she goes, I'm not going to sign these papers until he learns how to clean his room. I was so humiliated, man. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I think we all broke out laughing. It's like, this is a joke. And that night, we got through the night. And again, I don't remember entirely how it played out. But about a week or 2 weeks later, my mom got saved. She gave her life to Christ. I think she was at Calvary at the time. Somebody invited her. And it was after that when she decided to sign the papers, and we ended up getting married. So it was about a little over close to a year later. But in that year's time, we didn't sleep together. We didn't fornicate. We're like, we're going to abstain because we want to do it the right way. Right. But it was hard. It was difficult.
I do want to ask this because I know there are people who watch things like this, and that decision you made, we're going to get married.
Yeah.
Right? I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Yeah.
can kind of see that leading to it. You're in the middle of an argument after you've made that decision, right? Or in the middle of a really tough time. And you can say, we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
We only did this because we had a baby.
Absolutely.
We only did this because Pastor Omar forced us.
Right.
Did those thoughts ever cross your mind?
Absolutely. I mean, we got married. We've been married 33 years. So we got married. I was 17. She was 18. And like any other marriage, you know, it has its ups and downs, has its good seasons, its bad seasons. And in the rough seasons, you do think about that at times. And I did. I'm like, you know, we were young. We didn't really know a lot about life. We just did it. And we did it for the right reason, because I think whenever you honor God's word, you're doing it for the right reason. But we just didn't have enough understanding what went into marriage. It's like, that's why premarital counseling is so important, right? You talk about all that stuff. But yeah, absolutely. Whenever you go through a hard time, you always question your decisions.
I always tell people that are going through things, right? I say, listen, I know it feels like you're the only marriage that's ever been this hard.
Yeah.
But this is everybody. Everybody goes through something, right? And I think for you to make that decision as a young man to say, hey, we're going to honor God. We're going to do what he wants us to do. And then you face those battles.
Yes.
Then you overcome that, right? And then you get into ministry, right? You start serving God in different capacities. And so what have you found yourself in the new seasons as you've gotten older, going through tough times again, right? What do some of those times look like as you serve God for a little bit longer?
So when we got married young, you start having kids, right? Start paying bills, mortgage payments, car payments, and then you tack on ministry with that. And there's a lot of responsibility and weight that comes with that. But I think that's just part of life. And so when it comes to ministry, ministry does it reveals things.
Yeah.
It really does. The motive for ministry should never be just to do it. There should be a purpose behind it. And so it's supposed to be inspired out of a relationship you have with the Lord, right? So ministry, it is a privilege. It's not a right. And as you serve God, I mean, I never aspired to, once I got saved, I'm not thinking to myself, I want to do this for God. Really, my focus was I just want to be in fellowship with God. I just want to be in God's presence. I just want to be in His Word. And as you do those things, God begins to open doors for ministry, right? It begins to open new doors and opportunities. Things come your way, but there's definitely more weight and things that pressure that comes with ministry. And when you have to juggle both, it's so important that you have a healthy balance and understanding of what's most important. One thing that I've always tried to do when it comes to ministry is bring my family along with me to do it together, number one. But I do my best, or I did my best, still doing my best, to try to never let my family think that ministry is before them. And what I mean by that is my relationship with God is before them.
Right.
But not ministry. So if I had to put it in a bracket, I'm first a son. I'm a son. I'm a child of God. My relationship with God is number one, a priority in my life. Number two, I'm a husband. And my wife is the second most important relationship I have on this earth next to my relationship with God. Number three, I'm a dad. And my kids are the most important thing in my life. And you can add grandkids into that mix now. And then number four, I'm a pastor.
Right.
And so that's the order. And whenever that order gets mixed up, that's when you start having problems. And so I really am diligent. I've tried to be all these years diligent about keeping that order in front of me all the time. And not missing baseball games if I can. And being not just there, but actually being present, right? Because you can be there and not be there, right? So you can be at home and your mind be somewhere else. You can be on your phone. You can be, just your mind's constantly going somewhere else and your family's right in front of you. So being there, not just being there, but being present there.
Right.
And so doing that helps when it comes time to need to step out and do ministry. You've kind of put, a lack for better words, money in the bank,
Right.
that allows you to go out and do other things.
So you committed to God. You made decisions to say, "Hey, Lord, I'm doing what you asked me to do.
Yes.
I'm going to do ministry. I'm going to do family. I'm going to do what's right." And you've stayed committed, right? I mean, we can all see that. And then you get hit with a trial.
Yeah.
And I know your story, but I'd like you to share that.
Okay.
Because in the middle of serving God with your whole heart and doing the best that you can, sometimes I think at least I would think this way, and I think some people might think this way, that as long as I'm serving God, my life's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go through much, and whatever I go through is going to be kind of easy, and I just got to get over it. But you endured a really tough time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, I mean, I've shared the story many times. I think, when's the last time I was at the Street Gospel? I think I shared it too. But in 2002, maybe it was before that, maybe 1999 or 2000, I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease, and I was only 28 years old. And, I grew up, athletic. I wanted to play be a pro baseball player. I had dreams of that, and that all changed when I got married and got saved. And
you could have made it though.
Yeah, I could have made it. I could have been. I should have been playing for the Dodgers. The World Series, I should have been out there. But anyways, it is what it is.
Uncle Rico.
We're Uncle Rico out there. Uncle Rico, at least for the Raiders, I would have been playing. But anyways, when I was diagnosed with this rare kidney disease, it rocked my world. Wow. Because even my doctor, when we're sitting in the office, says this is so rare of a disease. Because I asked, is it hereditary? Like, did it pass on from my aunts? It just landed on you, he says. Wow. And so he says your life's going to be different now, though. Whether in 5 years you need to be on dialysis, you need a transplant, you're going to be on medication the rest of your life. There's certain things you're not going to be able to do. Like, he just started putting all these restrictions on a guy who hates restrictions, right? Who likes, I'm spontaneous. I like to do things and just move. And then I'm hearing restriction. Wow. Restriction. Life is going to be restricted now. And that's what I'm hearing in my mind. And it rocked me. It rocked my world. I remember leaving the office. Lisa was in there with me, and she's quiet while he's sharing all this. And we walked out. She met me there. I came from work, and she met me there in two separate cars. I took off. I go, I'll meet you at home. I took off. I got on the freeway, 91 freeway, and I'm just like flying down the freeway, angry, and just crying out to God in anger, like, why are you allowing this to happen? Why, God? I'm 28 years old. Like, I'm pleading my case. And I read the story of Job and all that he went through, lost his family, lost his kids, his business, all the stuff that he lost, his health is in shambles. And now I get the picture. If you read Job, he's pleading his case to God, going, God, what did I do to deserve this? Like, come on, God. And so I'm driving down the highway, and I'm screaming at God and going, this ain't right. This ain't fair. I'm trying to do your will. I'm trying to do your, at the time, I think I was the youth pastor, if I'm not mistaken, at Paramount. And so after that, I kind of settled in and kind of just relaxed, calmed down. Adam called me on the phone. I guess my wife must have called Adam and said, hey, can you call your friend? I know he's not doing well. Adam called me, and he called me while I was on the freeway flying, and he goes, where you at? And I go, I'm on the freeway, man, just losing my mind. He goes, pull over, calm down. He goes, let me help you with this. And he started just talking down, like, hey, listen, man, God loves you. You're gonna get through this. It's just a season. And he just started speaking life into me in that moment, and it totally changed that mood that I was in that moment. And but I knew, and it's crazy because I knew in that second that going forward, this was going to be a long journey. You know how you go through a hard time in your life, and it's like, okay, it's over now. And truthfully, hard times don't last forever. You go through certain seasons and they end, and you financial difficulties, and that season's over. And you go through a season maybe where the kids are sick a lot, and now that's over. They've kind of grown out of that. And so you go through these seasons, and then you see it kind of end. With this one, I kind of felt like this is going to be with me forever.
Wow. Because
even if I get a transplant or have to go on dialysis, or I'm going to be on medication the rest of my life. And I am today, 20 years later, I'm on immune suppressants because by the grace of God, my wife was able to donate a kidney. She was a perfect match. And there's a whole story that goes in with that. But it is still an issue today that I deal with. I deal with the side effects.
Hold on. You just said something that was kind of a big deal. So you needed a transplant.
Yes.
And you said your wife was the perfect match.
Yes. So talk about that.
So hold on. So this is what I think is crazy, is you go, rewind all the way back to you're 16 years old, making these crazy decisions. and then deciding I'm going to be with this woman.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to do what's right. And I like that kind of like almost like gives me chills a little.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy how God orchestrates these things. I mean, I love how you just brushed over that too. Yeah, my wife, perfect transplant. Perfect fit. Anyway, moving on. But do you ever like think about that? How
All the time, man.
you could have made the decision to say, you know what? I'm still young.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with this woman. I'm going to go find some. And you never know what your life would have looked like.
No.
But you stayed obedient to God.
Probably wouldn't be alive.
Wow.
It would have, because
Does Lisa throw that in your face ever?
she tries to, and then I call her out on some stuff.
I saved your life.
Yeah, I call her out on some stuff, and then we're back to normal. But no, that was a
Balance.
huge. That's
Balance
a
in
huge balance.
marriage.
That's balance in a marriage. That was a huge thing.
Hey guys, we're going to get right back into the podcast. But before we do, I want to thank our sponsors, David Hernandez Ministries and all the partners there. And of course, all of our Bold community partners. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do that by going to our website.
And the reason why I kind of breezed over is because I've shared it so many times, and I can't really build it up without going into all the history of it. But there was a lot of people that were getting tested to see if they'd be a match. People from Fresh Fire were getting tested. Wow. No matches. My dad, my mom, everybody. They weren't healthy enough to transplant. So there was no matches for me. I remember Diga called me up one time and said, "Hey, listen, I want to take you." This is when I was getting really sick because of the disease. "Hey, I want to take you to Benny Hinn, crusade. It's at the Long Beach Aquarium," and he goes, "I'll pick you up. We'll go. I got us in the front row." So I went with your brother, and Adam went with us, and I'm sitting in the front row, and I'm literally sitting in the chair, like facing, Benny Hinn, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if this guy if he just acknowledges me, like, I'm going to get healed, man. Like, he's going to throw his jacket on me or whatever. My mindset was like
whatever works.
just wave his hand. My mind was like, I'm so desperate for a miracle.
Wow.
Because I was sick, man. I was preaching, pastoring. I was really sick. And so anyways, the service ended. And in those services, he doesn't really lay hands on anybody. He just kind of prays and worships. And then the Holy Spirit does the miracle, and then he calls people up. And I didn't feel anything. And I remember Adam had to leave early. And I'm sitting there with your brother, and he's looking at me, and I go, "I don't feel anything." And so when it ended, I was like walking out mad. I was angry. So I was getting ready to exit, and Diga's like walking behind me, like, what am I going to say here? And I think it was either Michael or Theo. He kind of waved at Diga, and Diga looked, and he said, "Hey, Pastor Mando." And I looked back, and he goes, "Hey, come on." So we went backstage, and there was a line to get into Benny Hinn's office. And Michael said, Theo said, "Hey, I want my father-in-law to pray for you and lay hands on you." And I'm like, okay, so that God's orchestrating this now, because I'm believing God's going to do something. Well, I get to there was like an hour wait in the line, which I hate waiting in line, so I was already bothered by that. So I get to the front, go into the room. He's already in his jeans and his sports coat, or sweater, hoodie. He's getting ready to leave. And he looks at me. I'm the last guy. So all these people he's praying for, talking to these people and ministering to them. I'm the last guy in that room. I'm walking in, and me, Digger, sitting there, and Theo's there. He looks at me, and Theo goes, "Hey, this pastor here needs a miracle. He's dying of kidney failure, and he needs a miracle, a healing." And so Benny Hinn walks up to me, like he lays his hand on me, and he stops himself, and he says, he goes, "I want to do this, but I don't feel like this is the right time to do it." And he goes, "I'd like you to come to my studio tomorrow, and I'll pray for you there." And then he just left. And I looked around like, what, was that it?
That would be nice to know an hour and a half ago.
Exactly, man. We could, So anyways, long story short, we go to the studio. He has me sitting on stage with him, me and Digger in his office, and he's showing me all this big photo of I think it was in India, and like 1 million people out there. It was crazy. But anyways, we go and he pulls us on stage, and has me sit on stage with him, and he's like, "I'm gonna pray for you during the service." And I go, "Okay, I'm ready." And I'm like, God's building this up. I think it's gonna be a great miracle here, because God's putting me up here. Anyways, long story short, he forgets to pray for me again. And so service ends, and I'm like, God has a sense of humor, man. And anyways, and before he walked off stage, he remembered, he turned around, and he goes, "Oh yeah,
he's like,
yeah, I forgot. We got to pray for our pastor over here." Yeah. And I'm like, "Thank you, about time, man. Let's get on with this. I need the miracle." And so he comes over and he lays his hand on me, and he doesn't pray healing, he prophesies over me, and he says, God is allowing you to go through this because there's a testimony that is going to touch lives around the world. Like your story is going to be told around. And he just prophesies over me. I'm in tears. My wife's in tears. In that moment, when he prophesied that to me, I realized this, that the miracle that God was going to do was not going to be the way I wanted it. It was going to be the way he wanted it. When we submit or surrender our pain, our suffering, our struggle, whatever it is, and we surrender it to God, he's able to take that and really bring honor and glory to his name, but in the way he chooses to do it. Wow. And I think that's where we wrestle with God, is we're trying to control the outcome of everything that we go through in life. It's impossible. And at that moment, I realized this is in God's hands. There was a peace that came over me. Right after we were done, a lady came up and prophesied over me and says, I seen an angel come as Pastor Benny was praying over you, an angel kind of ascend and just bless you, and God was going to move. And fast forward ahead, 3 months later, my wife goes to the doctor, find out she's a perfect match, donates a kidney to me. 2008, October 30th, 2008 is when we went in to do this procedure. So it's been 16 years, man. Wow. And so far, everything is well. The kidney's working fine. I mean, it's just a miracle.
So God put you through this roller coaster of a season. But even then, has there been any other obstacles that you feel like, man, I got through this, I'm done with this, I'm ready to go?
Yeah.
And then you get hit with another.
I've been hit with so many things. I mean, there's a list. And then we move. So that put a strain on our marriage. We had a lot. There was a lot of, because you got to remember, I'm pastoring. I'm dealing with a lot of emotional things from the surgery. I'm dealing with I'm on new medication now. That's making me putting me in different emotional states. So I got to deal with that. I'm a type of guy, I hate taking any medication. I don't like taking Tylenol. I mean, I never drank. I didn't do, drugs. I was like, I hated it. I hated being out of a state of control. And so now I'm on these medications, and they're making me they're wigging me out. And, the pressure of ministry on top of what we were dealing with put strain on our marriage. And then so we get through this season, and then we move into another season where we did a church merger. And that was, I think, coupled with what we just came out of, and then going to this church merger, literally almost took me out completely. Like, it was overwhelming. And it started well. It was one of those church mergers where it looked like it was going to go well on paper. And then once you get in and you realize your vision and the vision of the person you're partnering with is completely different. The expectations are different. So you think you're on the same page, but you have a totally different outlook on life and ministry. We got into it, and this just totally wrecked me. It wrecked a lot of relationships. My wife just went into a depression. Like, it was just so much that happened in this window of time. It was about a 3-year window. Jeez. On top of what we just came out of.
Well, because what year did you go start your church?
Man, I want to say 2006 or 7.
So 2007, and then what year was this merger?
2014.
So you were building a church for let's just say 5 years,
right?
And then at the 5-year mark, you say, "Hey, let's do this merger."
Let's do this merger.
So you pretty much put your whole 5 years of work
into a merger
that you thought was going to go really well.
Yep.
And it didn't go well.
It didn't go well at all. It was. It took every bit of life out of me. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was completely innocent in it. What I mean by that is, I think there were some motives in me that was thinking a little more on the ambitious side than the spiritual side, if that makes sense. So, we prayed, of course. We had our elders, our meetings together, trying to vision cast this, work this out. But I think there was a little bit of ambition to me to say, I want this to work. I need this to work. Maybe to validate my ministry, because it was a multi-million-dollar facility. It was on a prime location, and it's kind of like you start to think this will give me this will kind of put me on a map to some degree. And so I know in my heart there was some of that, and so that's why I'm saying I'm not completely innocent in this decision. But once we got in there, we went through so much in that transitional state that it almost broke our marriage, man. Our marriage was on like the verge of collapse.
What was it? What was it that If you could pin it to, one or two things that you feel like was it a mindset? Was it people saying things about you? What was it that felt so heavy and so hard to handle?
In the merger?
In the merger.
It was the two different cultures. So we came in with our church has a culture, right? And so it was our culture merging with another culture, and it was just totally different. I remember at one point in the merger thinking to myself, man, this can't be church. Like, it can't be like this. There's no way. If this is church, I don't want anything to do with church.
Wow.
Like, that's how bad it was. So I was trying to blend these two cultures together. But the problem is that the pastor of that church was still there. So had he, let's say, resigned and moved on, it would have been tough, but we would have made it because we had one voice coming in, which would have been my voice, right, speaking into the congregation, and the transition would eventually taken place. But because he was still there, and we're trying to do this together, it's like two cultures that were clashing, and there was a lot of pressure that came with that, and it affected my wife. Just the way they did things, the way they handled situations, the way we did things were totally different, and to a point where she didn't even want to go to church. She's like, I'm not going back to that church. I had leaders that were with me for years going, we're leaving. We can't do this anymore. And so where it came to the pinnacle of where it kind of we parted ways is we had a Elevate conference, and we took our youth and we took their youth because they had some youth there. So we took all our youth, put them together, we took them to Elevate, and these kids had an encounter with God. So when we got back, I wanted them to share. I was like, put them on stage, let them all share what God did for them. And one of the kids got up there on the stage and said, we went to this thing called Elevate, and it was so awesome. And we've been in this church for years, and we've never encountered God like this before. And when he said that, I remember I kind of glanced over at the other pastor, and I seen their look, and I'm going, it's going to go bad from here. I know it. No. And that was kind of the pivotal point.
Did he say anything to you?
He didn't say anything, but his demeanor changed. Everything changed in that moment. It was like, now we're in competition.
Wow.
And it just, from there, it imploded. And there came a point where we had a big meeting. All our elders came together. We had 12 elders, and I had 6 of mine, he had 6 of his. And we had this big meeting and trying to iron things out. And it wasn't really an iron out thing. It was more of, him just spewing things that he didn't like about our church, about our culture, about everything. And I'm listening to this going, I can't believe I signed up for this. Like, I brought my congregation to this. But in that moment, so what was crazy about it was in that moment, the elders, even his elders, stood up for me and said, I want to say something. Since Pastor Mando and Lisa have been here, we've baptized more. And he starts giving this, and I didn't even think of it. He started giving this resume of all the things that we've done. We've seen a move of God. We've seen more people. We went to services, all these different things that are happening. And even after that, when he kind of stormed out and the meeting just kind of ended up abruptly. And
too bad there's no live stream.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank God, man. And so a day later, so the meeting ended. A day later, one of the elders reached out to me and said, hey, listen, would you come to the office? We want to talk to you. And I said, sure. So I walked in. They were sitting down. They go, listen, we decided that we'd like you to be the pastor of this church. But if there's a way, could you work with him still? Like, if we figure out a way for you guys to work together. And I was like, honest, I go, look, I'll be honest with you. It's not a matter of not liking him. It's not that. It's trust. And I feel like trust has been violated. And once trust is violated, very hard to earn that back. I go, it's just a trust issue now. And I don't think I can do that. Okay, we're gonna work with him. We're gonna figure out, but we'd like you to be the pastor here. And would you still want to do that? Because we know that was a rough meeting. I go, of course. If this is where God's calling me, I'll lead and I'll stay here and we'll work it out. Well, fast forward ahead, I was leaving to Hong Kong on a missions trip. And I told him this. I said, look, I'm down to do this. I'm still on point to do this. But when I get back, I want this done. Like, I can't come back and still have all this tension, and it can't be this way. They go, we'll take care of it. Well, when I got back from Hong Kong, half the elders had left, and it was just a mess. So I resigned. I resigned, and that was in 2007. 17 or 18 when I left. And I gave up everything to go there. So we canceled, our bank accounts, our website. We just relinquished our 501c3, everything, just shut everything down. So we left with nothing. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, maybe God's done with me. Maybe this is it. I gave a good run, fought hard through a lot of things, but maybe God has another plan for me. And so I remember talking to Elijah, my son, and he's like, what are we going to do now, Dad? I go, well, we'll pray and we'll see what God wants to do. And he goes, well, we got to do something because we have people that are asking, where's church going to be on Sunday? So we end up getting a little hotel room down the street. We rented it out, and I was in my head, I'm thinking, and this is where I was emotionally. Mm-hmm. In my head, I'm thinking, I hope nobody shows up.
Wow.
I don't want anybody. I hope it's just a few of us, and it's like, I'm done doing church. I'm done pastoring.
Jeez.
Can't do this anymore. The emotional toll it took on me and my marriage, my family, and I felt bad for the people that I brought into the merger, because they came with me and they went through hell too. But that first service, I think like 65, 70 people showed up. It was the room we had was packed, and I'm going, I go, God's not gonna let me off the hook on these.
You're like, oh man,
He's not gonna let me off the hook, man. I know.
What are you guys doing here?
And it was like, and it was almost like God saying, we're gonna start all over.
Wow.
I'm the potter, you're the clay.
Jeez.
And if I want to start over, I'll start all over. And it was kind of like he took the clay and he broke it up again, and he goes, we're gonna do something new.
Wow.
And I had to be okay with that. I think in life, it doesn't always go as we want it to go, but God has a bigger picture in what he has for us. And I had to roll with it. I'm like, I'll do whatever you want, God. So many things broke in me during that period that I have a list of things on my phone where, what did I learn? And I wrote these things down. There's so many like golden gems that I learned from that moment. But it's got to be his way. And
wow.
So
I'd love to hear some of those.
Yeah, I'll go through some of those things. Yeah. I know you have some more questions for me.
No, let's pull it out.
Let's so, a couple things that I wrote down. And I put down some things that I've learned when it comes to, and it was all when I came out of this merger experience. I'm in our matter of fact, for the first 6 months, we didn't have a name for our church. We were just like the nameless church. We had no leadership, nothing. We're like, let's just seek God. Let's just come together and pray. Let's just come together and worship. Let's just have some prayer meetings together. Let's not try to, move so fastly here. Let God do this. And then eventually Resonate came to be and all this and that. But and a couple of things that I learned that, to separate God from the problems in ministry. In other words, my heart is with him. Rain or shine. So I have to learn to separate the problems or the struggle or the pain from God. And what happens is we lump it together. And then we say, okay, what I'm experiencing, even though God's in it, he's working through it, we kind of shift the responsibility and blame on God. And God uses it for his purpose, but I have to learn to separate the two. That the pain I'm feeling and experiencing, it comes from a broken world that we live in. It comes from, a sinful nature that we have, right? It comes from humanity that is has their free will to make decisions. And so that pain that's caused from other people's choices or even my own decision making, I can't put that on God. I have to learn to separate the two. Even though God's in it, I have to learn to separate the two. A couple other things was, I have to learn to be a bridge for other people, being secure in who I am. One of the things I learned in that moment of merger was I had to deny myself because there was 2 pastors there. It wasn't just me, it was another pastor. And so to see my folks go to this other pastor, getting advice, seeking counsel, at first that bothered me. And I realized that they're not my people, they're God's people. So I had to release that to him, right? And so it's like, God, they're your people. I just want to be a bridge for them. If they need me and I can help, I'm here.
Yeah.
But I'm not the final say. You are. So those are a couple things. The other thing was this is to be fast with task but slow with people, and that's a phrase from Marcus Meekum. He uses that, but I realized when we were there, it was all business. It was like we work, and it was almost like people took a back seat.
Wow.
And I realized after I came out of that and I started over again, that how like it was almost like my eyes were open to see how precious these people are, how special they are. And I bonded with them like right away. I was like, man, like when I seen them and say, even tell somebody, hey, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
I actually meant it.
Right.
You know, I mean, we do, right? We say,
Yeah.
like, hey, good to see you, man. Good. But we say it so nonchalant or so cliche. Oh, it's good
Yeah.
to see you. And we're telling everybody that. But I actually meant it. Like,
Wow.
man, come here, man. Give me a hug, man. Man, I'm so excited. Like my heart changed in so many ways, like to be fast with tasks, slow with people. And then realize that, the responsibility for myself, let's see, what did I put here? Let's see, to hold God's blessing with an open hand. Mm-hmm. And so when you think of, one of the commandments is thou shalt not covet, right? And so we don't covet our neighbor's house, our neighbor's wife. We don't covet our neighbor's possessions. I realized I had a covet problem when I got into that merger. I realized that there were some things that I was pursuing that were just not righteous. It was ego. It was pride. I was doing it out of pride. And when you lose it all, then you realize, man, what's left? And in that moment, it was like, God was like, I'm here.
Wow.
You still have me. And with me, if you trust me, we can do it my way. And then I can use you and bless you and and literally the plan for your life is not going to be like somebody else's. It'll be what I have for you. And so I realized not to hold things so tightly. Like you got to keep those blessings with an open hand. If God wants to take them out and replace it with something else, we have to be okay with that. So there's a whole lot more, but those are just a few things.
That's so good. That's really good.
That just changed my life, man. Yeah. And I the value of people, I look at people differently now. I look at life differently. When you go through that, Mike, I'm telling you,
you've been through a lot.
Go through a lot.
You've been through a lot of stuff.
You see life differently, and I do now.
When you showed up to the church on that Sunday morning, 65, 70 people, I know that you had said like part of you didn't want people to go. But was there also a sense when you saw those people like, man, they're still with us?
Yes.
And there's some value in that.
Yes. I'll tell you where one of the things that I felt in that, because I still remember, what's crazy is I looked through my phone and I have, photos from, 2001. You look through all the history and years. And as I'm looking in the past 5 years, that merger and where we are, I can tell you when I see a picture, what I was feeling in that moment, what I was experiencing in that moment, the thoughts that I had in that moment as I see a picture. I remember exactly what I was feeling right there. I remember exactly the anger I felt, the hurt that I felt. And so absolutely, there's so people come in that first service, there was a feeling of validation. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
But would you say it was a more healthy validation?
Absolutely. Like a confirmation.
Right.
Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, no, I think this is what I try to find balance in, because you do what you do for the Lord, right? 100%. But I think there's still some healthy validation and affirmation that come when people are with you.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's like, okay, if God called me to shepherd people, it's nice to know that people trust me as a shepherd.
Right. And there's people there to shepherd. Right.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think hearing that story is I didn't know some of the stuff that you had mentioned. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I was around, but I wasn't in details. I don't think I could have handled that.
And there's more. There's so much
I'm
more.
sure
There's so much more. But I just kind of gave you the brief
But I think
summary.
the stories are they're so heavy.
Yeah.
But what I remember growing up with you, because I was at your house all the time with Elijah, and he's a really good friend of mine. And I'm trying to get him to move out here to Texas.
Yeah, I
so
know you are.
I'm praying for him.
I've actually erased your phone number from his phone. I haven't blocked you.
I just want to tell you guys a story about Pastor Mando. So his son was here, and I was trying to convince his son to move here.
Yeah.
And so I started calling Mando. He ignored my messages, my phone calls, my Instagram DMs for like a week and a half.
I want to do with you. I didn't want nothing to do with you, man. I want nothing to do with you. I know how this story works. I know how this all ends, man. I've seen a lot of people from Paramount come, man. I'm like, no.
I almost had him, man. I took him to see all the nice houses.
I know you did. He told me.
This could be yours.
He told me that.
This could all be yours.
He told me that. I'm like, I'm going to kill
Say
Mike.
yes to the calling of God in your life. Yeah, so I grew up with your son. I was at your house a lot. But I never saw, even, you say 2017, 2018. I was 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
Wait, no. Wait, what year?
2017. 2000. It's 24.
No, so I was old. Yeah, I was.
You're older.
I don't even know.
You're 17?
I can't do the math. No,
Yeah.
I was 17 in 2007. So I was 27?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I was only 20. Yeah, 2017, 2018 is when we started
I moved to Texas
Resonate.
in 2018.
So right when you moved to Texas, when we started Resonate, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, even in my teenage years with you going through the sickness, and then I was a part, friends. I remember talking to Elijah about a lot of the merging stuff. He would kind of vent to me, and we would all just see the basketball court and say, "Man, you got to get that church. You got to."
Well, you remember. Yeah,
I played there a few times. But what I admire about you is that it always seems as if you're full of joy and peace, right? We would always still have a good time together. We'd make jokes, we'd laugh. I remember even making jokes about the situation with you in the moments. Even Lisa, I feel like we'd always just have a good time together at your house. And you guys were although you were going through things, it never felt like you allowed those things to rob you of your joy and peace. I'm sure it felt like that in moments.
Right.
But how were you able to keep such a healthy mindset and perspective during those times where you're able to still laugh and have joy?
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I think it was in any situation that's difficult. It's hard. You can't fabricate it, right? You can't just make it up. We're human. We deal with real human emotions and fears and pain and anger, and so those emotions are a part of life and a part of situations when things come up like that, and so you deal with that. So that was there. I think one of the things that helped me through that season, and I'll just say this because I think that, and you probably can relate to this, is having good people around you. It helped me big time. Having Pastor Omar around, and Pastor Eddie and Adam, and then even my son and Luke, my son-in-law, and my kids, my family, and friends. Just having people around me that were great supporters, and they were kind of rooting for me.
Yeah.
And that it changes everything. If you have people behind you rooting for you, on your side, speaking life over you, telling you, hey, listen, you're going to get through this. Pastor Omar, I remember him calling me and just, and this, when you talk to Pastor Omar, you could be going through like the worst crisis in the world. Mm-hmm. And he just has a way of calming you down by just saying a few words like, hey, listen, Mando, it's not as bad as you think it is. And, hey, listen, he has a free will. He can do what he wants. And it could have been God's plan for you. But again, we deal with people. Just a few words totally changed my perspective. That, coupled with, of course, being in prayer and being in the Word, it really helped me. But again, learning and understanding that where I am in life is where I need to be. I don't need to rush the process. God has me where He wants me. I really try to lean on that verse. Of course, with God, all things are possible. So I know God's working things out. And whatever I'm facing in life, in those moments, I realize that God is for me. He's working with me. This is all somehow going to work out for my good, right? For those that love God, all things work together for the good. They're called according to His purpose. So all of that together, it kind of keeps me rooted, and it kept me grounded in my walk with Him. Because at the end of the day, I know what it's like to lose it all, but I still had my family with me. I still had my kids with me, my friends, my God, my relationship with my Lord. I still had all the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And then from there, things just started to grow again. So it's kind of like Samson, right? Gets his hair cut off and they're ready to execute him. But the Bible says his hair began to grow back. His strength began to come back. And that's exactly what happened, man. I felt like I lost everything.
Wow.
But then little by little, God begins to rebuild his way. But I think that joy comes from the relationships you surround yourself with, and of course your time with the Lord.
So how's ministry now? How's
It's
life
amazing now. It's beautiful. You know, I look where God has brought us in the last several years, you know, from the hotel. Now we just got into our new building, you know. Miracle building, beautiful building, location, room to grow, turnkey ready. Just like if God just said, this was for you, you know, you guys. And not just the building itself, but the ministries that are coming out of it, the people that are coming to the church now, the families that are being changed. And so what's helped me, even in this moment, is realize this, that when I'm going through a very difficult time, a time of suffering, because the Bible says that those who desire to live godly will suffer persecution. There's going to be persecution that you're going to suffer through. You know, though we want to reign with Christ, no, you're going to suffer with him too, right? So there's a element of suffering that we all experience in this life. And so what I realized this, if you are going to finish the race, if you're going to stay the course and do it with joy, you have to have a bigger picture mindset. You have to realize that your ability to keep going, or your tenacity to keep going, is driven by a bigger picture mentality, realizing that what I do is connected to so many people's lives. My family is counting on me. You know, they're the decisions I make to move forward or to quit, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids will be affected by that decision. My decision to keep going or quit, people in our congregation, not only them, but their children and their children's children are going to be affected by it. So if you think bigger picture, that I realize I'm only here for a short time in this life. My life is but a vapor, that God has me on a mission to accomplish this mission he has for me, that I cannot quit. Quit cannot be an option. It can't. I have to continue to finish the race that God's called me to finish. And so when I look at the church now, I am so grateful to God that I didn't give up, man, that I didn't quit.
It's like the treasure at the end, right?
It is. And you know, I think, you know, I'm known for people, like when I talk about Rocky, right? And so people make fun of me. I have to bring up Rocky, man. I have to bring Rocky up.
Yeah.
And so if you look at this man's life, I know it's just a movie. You know, my 50th birthday, they threw a surprise party for me, and it was a Rocky party. I was like, this is great. This is great. This is all I wanted.
For those who don't know, Rocky is an old movie.
It's an old movie, but it's a great movie. It's a great movie. But the whole thing with him was, you know, the underdog that never gave up.
Wow.
Never quit. Got knocked down over and over and over, and he just kept getting back up. And I think for Christians, man, there has to, what's the scriptures say, that the righteous man will fall 6 times but always get back up, right? So there's a tenacity and a resilience as a believer to understand that I have a obligation to finish this race. No matter what, I got to finish.
The tough times won't last forever.
They won't last forever.
It seems like that, though.
It does, and of course, depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we suffer is self-inflicted, so we caused
our
it.
own stupidity,
yep. and that's there. There's some things that I've suffered through my life, the bad decisions I made, bad choices I made. There's other things that have been put on me by other people's decisions and choices, and I'm not making light of, because I know there's some people that are really struggling and have suffered because of other people's choices, abuse, neglect, rejection, all those things. But regardless of what's happened to you, you still have a free will, a choice to make. Even though it happened to you, you have the ability not to let it affect you and your decision making for your life. It's still your life, man.
Right.
You know, you either can let it destroy you, or you take it to God, lay it at his feet, and let it sharpen you and let it build you to do something great for him.
I love your story. I can't wait for you to start your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah, you've inspired me, man.
Man, it's gonna be good. Pastor Mando, appreciate you. Yes. Thank you for being on today.
Yes, love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you do like, comment, and also don't forget, subscribe to the channel. And when you subscribe, turn on the notifications so that you can be notified every single time we release brand new content. We release content just like this every single week.